On my way here, I was thinking, if you made a list of what you want, what people want around speaking, what brings people to this type of thing, is to be, the two words I thought of was authenticity. Everybody wants to be authentic, and they want to connect. Authenticity and connection seems to be everything, or a lot of it. And I was thinking about the misconception about both ideas. And the one about authenticity, if you prepared amazingly authentic content, really coming from your being, with stories that were just transparently, brilliantly useful stories, and you knew just how to deliver it authentically, and you come to a group and you're not attuned to the group you're speaking to in that moment, that authenticity falls flat. That authenticity is not satisfying. Just authenticity that's not relational, something missing. So it's not authenticity, it's some kind of relational authenticity in this moment. So authenticity wants connection. But what's connection? What's the misunderstanding of connection? It was last week somebody got up and said, I want to develop my muscle of connection. And we think, and that person was under that sense of that to connect, to be connected, is to do something. I'm going to connect. That there's something, and when you try to connect, you're coming from separation. So the thing about connection is to assume the natural connection between human beings, even if you don't feel it in the moment. You have some sense of oneness of humanity. So the idea is not to connect, but to allow the natural connection. So that's a little difference. So all we're doing today, so here's the thing I was realizing. So our work begins with allowing the connection, without any concern for your content, the authenticity of what you think you need to say or what you want to say, like I'm going to be authentic. It's understanding the natural connection. And when you allow the natural connection, I'm making some movements now that I'm going to explain in a few minutes. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just this is how I feel the connection or sense the connection. That when you understand the allowance of connection, authenticity will arise naturally. Everything will work out. So we start with the allowance of connection this morning. And the pleasure of connection. Because if you're not feeling the pleasure of their company, it's a uphill climb. So we play, we don't work, we play in this connection. So I'm doing this because I sense that we're connected underground through the law of gravity. Physicists will probably tell us that we're connected through the earth. We're earth potatoes. And the gravity brings us to the center of the earth together. So I sense a resonance. A lot of musicians know. Musicians know that you resonate rather than, express, project, resonate. So that's a sense of connected through the earth. If you have that sense, when you come up, let yourself drop. And by being with one person at a time and allowing them to join you if they wish, connection happens. Everybody feels it. The room becomes a field of belonging, a field of listening. So what am I doing? One person at a time. One person at a time. I'm slowing it down. So you can notice that I'm not even speaking as I move from one person to another. There's a bit of space. As we're practicing it, maybe we create more space so that we get it in our being. Eventually it becomes more fluid, but it's still the one person at a time. And when you're up here, you don't even have to speak, so it's not a matter of having to figure out what to say. You be with one person at a time. Now, for this to work requires that all the listeners be available. You're doing all the work. by being available. In a soft, gentle gaze. It's a listening meditation. You learn a lot when you do this because you see that that's the support people in your life need more of often. You go home and you start listening to people from this place. It's great practice. It's a wonderful practice and it's very clear. It's not about validating. It's a soft, steady gaze of support, holding the space. I call it holding the stillness for the person to discover themselves. It's listening each other into existence, is one way to put it. That's our practice. Now, in the morning, in this first round, even people who've been here a lot, I really want you to hang out and sense a pleasure of being held this way. And if it brings anxiety, let the anxiety be there, but notice that you don't have to hide it. So often people will get up and say, "Gee, you know, I'm anxious, but I feel good too. How can I have both?" It's because your anxiety is not being judged. You can feel that you're accepted. We've all been through it. So there's a little pleasure, and as soon as you recognize the pleasure, notice the pleasure, it increases. And we feel it. And it's a pleasure field, and that's how people learn and how you're at your best. And they're at their best when you're leading the listening from up here. So when I say be with one person at a time, it's not, I don't call it eye contact, because that's like technique. I say you actually see the person so they feel seen. That's what gets people involved. I see that's higher priority for me than the content. So everybody wants to be available, soft and steady, saying basically the message is, you have a home in my eyes. And from up here, you'd be with one person at a time. Don't have to speak. Let it happen. What we'll notice is the reason this is called pleasure and purpose speaking circle is that when there's a pleasure field and you're comfortable in this space, as you go on to do turns later this morning and the afternoon, the things you tend to talk about when you feel safe are important things that relate to your purpose. And you can't figure that out until you're here and say, "Oh, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these things. This relates to my teaching, my calling, what's important to me." You'll feel safe. When you feel safe, that's what you talk about. That's what we talk about. So it's going to happen around purpose without trying. So the third guideline, I said the first guideline is the listening, second guideline is being with one person at a time, and the third guideline is confidentiality. To keep it safe here, we can't talk about people's content. You don't go up to people at the break and say, "Oh, I need help." You don't get involved in their content. When you're up here, perhaps somebody talks about something and it inspires you to talk about it. You can talk about it, but don't bring them back in. When you talked about it, you don't single people out. And that makes it safe for anything to come out. This means 30 seconds more or less. So finish up right away or take 30 or 45 seconds. I won't time it unless you go way over. I'll say, "Come on." And then, very important part of the work, when you indicate you're done, like "thank you," or we will applaud you, and we ask that you take every clap to the last clap, and then a full breath. Notice the temptation to get the heck out of here. And I'll just be, "Come on, come back, come back, come back, come back," because that's that running away, that fleeing, that we want you to get the pleasure of the final movement. So I will model receiving all my applause, and then a breath. Yeah.
So cute. Just feeling the pleasure of my body arriving first, and feeling the pleasure of the heart beating just a little bit faster, and being aware of my breath. being aware of the space in this room, being aware of feeling this channel of openness to connection, like really widen as I stand here and be just nowhere else. Sometimes this morning I was running around like a crazy person because I could not find my keys. And sometimes I wonder, as we sort of go through our day and put ourselves together to look a certain way for people, like if we could just, we all have these moments of like disorganization or just, so the reason I bring that up is there's this pleasure of releasing any sense of control, any sense of needing to wear a mask, just like just really the pleasure of just allowing and not having to control anything. And trusting that like the free fall, playful dive into what wants to show up right now. I feel like this is a safe haven to talk to my ego, the ego part of me that tries to tell me that I'm separate from other people, or if I show who I really am, I won't be accepted or loved or appreciated. I'm like really giving that misinformed part of myself a little love every time I come up here. And trusting, like really feeling the trust in each person whose eyes I meet. And I'm really grateful to be here today. And I'm looking forward to being with all of you. Thank you.